Hello and welcome to New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. It's really a pleasure to have you here. We're in a convention of authors right now, so we have a lot of people to talk to, and these are all mystery writers. And I have the good pleasure of having Barbara Eppich Struna with me. She's written books about the Cape that historical, and so these are three series. The last one is called Hollywood Secret, but it's about the old Cape. So tell us.
I write in alternating chapters, and so I have a modern-day character who appears in all three books. She's my vehicle that moves you through the story, and in one chapter she finds something, the next chapter you're going to meet the character in whatever time period I choose, and it's always on the Cape or in some other location. Two locations, Cape Cod and another place, back and forth, and I tell a story that way.
And your stories are have a historical. How long? When does it start?
Well, the first two books started, they are from the 18th century, 1700s, and modern day. And then my latest third book is from 1947, Cape Cod and Hollywood and modern day.
You must have done a lot of research to get this.
I did. The first one was published in 2014, and prior to that I had done at least 10 years of research on the 18th century in Cape Cod.
Wow, you must know a lot about it. Let me ask you one thing, as a writer of historical novels as well. How do you sort out telling the history and telling the story?
Well, through my research I learned how people dressed, what they ate, what kind of roads they traveled on. And then I pick a couple of characters, and wherever there's a missing element in their story, which we don't know about, that's when I fictionalize. But I do keep to the facts.
Yeah, so you keep to the facts, of course, but you can't give too many facts, otherwise it becomes a historical book as opposed
That's
to a
correct.
novel.
My books are very easy reads. They're like I'm sitting down at the table and telling you a story. That's how they're written.
Yes, and there's a mystery.
Yes.
Can you let us in on some of the mysteries?
Well, here's the thing. It's more of a suspenseful story because in my books you know the bad guys and the good guys. So there's no mystery to it. There's a suspense mostly. You don't know what's going to happen to my characters as they move through the story.
Okay, so this one here this is the Hollywood Secret. Is that the one that starts right after World War II?
Yes, 1947,
And it goes until
modern day.
a modern day. Is this the end of your series?
No, I have another one that's going to take place in Juneau, Alaska, and Provincetown in Cape Cod, and it'll be 1898 and modern day.
What prompted you to write this? What prompted you to write in the first place?
Well, in the first two, my husband and I had purchased an 1880 house on Cape Cod, and I knew it had a lot of secrets. Then I discovered Sam Bellamy, the pirate, who crashed his ship on our coast in 1700. So then I tied the two together. And then in the other two, I have two sons that live in Hollywood and work in Hollywood. And I go there a lot. In the fourth one, I have another son who lives in Juneau, Alaska, and I go there also. I make a triangle trip.
I see. So you're really based in New England. This is your home. This is what you're writing about.
Right. I've been on the Cape for 29 years.
Well, tell us a little about what was the Cape like in the 1800s?
In the 1800s, totally different. The roads, if you travel down Old Kings Highway, which is the Route 6A, the very touristy road,
yes.
all right, you will see a different, sometimes you'll be driving down and you'll see a little turnoff. That's the real 6A. But in 1930 and 40, they made the road straighter. They said for safety, but it was really because they wanted to go faster.
I see. You know, the people who were most instrumental in building roads in this area were bicyclists.
Well, that's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's in the 18th century. In the 1700s, it was the Indians. We folled the Indian paths to make
That's right. We
Kings
followed
Highway.
the Indian path.
That's right.
And life was difficult.
Absolutely, and women of all of the people, inhabitants, had a very hard life. And the first book is dedicated to all the women who like to dance under the moon and be a free spirit.
Oh, that's great. I'm looking forward to reading this. Barbara Eppich Struna, thank you so much for being with us New England authors. And
Pleasure to talk with you.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this.
Good. Thank you so much, Kameel.
All right. Bye. Welcome again to New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. I have my good friend Maureen Walsh with us. Hey, Maureen.
Hi, it's good to see you, Kameel.
Everybody calls you Mo.
Yeah, that's my actual name is Maureen, but my family's always called me Mo. Friends have called me Mo, and when I got out of the full-time job market and into mystery writing, I said I'm going back to Mo.
And you specialize in short stories.
Yeah, I have published my very first short story called Roadside Roulette won the Mary Higgins Clark short mystery
Congratulations.
suspense
That's
contest.
great.
So that was my first outing.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
1998.
Uh-huh.
And then followed that up by, I've had stories in 5 of the Best New England Crime Story anthologies, and I've done some online.
It's a lot harder to write a short story than a novel, many people have said, because you have to give the whole ambience and develop the character in just a few pages. Do you find that's true?
Well, I find that there are some things you just don't have the words to do, or you have to do it very efficiently. In terms of setting, you don't have time to really develop a character over time. You've got to give people an idea right off the bat, sort of what they are, unless that's part of your story is to reveal that as that's the big thing of the story. So yeah, you do have to do everything shorter, fewer people, generally very short timeline, which can be a challenge.
How many pages are we talking about?
Well, that can range from flash fiction, which currently online is usually about 1,000 words or less.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the real short ones. I've done stories as short as 100 words.
Yes.
They were fun.
Yes.
And that's, to me, that's fun. And it's a challenge, but we at this conference, we're at a conference today, do the flash words challenge, which is to do a short crime story in 150 words or less.
Oh, that's great.
And people love trying that, but they find it does present different challenges than being able to go with a novel and go on and do things over time.
So, Maureen Walsh, you're also a editor of an anthology, right? Or writer of an anthology. Go ahead. Tell
Okay,
us.
sure. It's not so much an anthology as it is it's called a book of killer trivia, a miscellany of murder, and the bits and pieces range from true crime to TV, classics, radio, and different kinds like lawyers and so forth. But each of the 5 of us wrote part of the book. I had the true crime section, and we put it together, organized by the 7 deadly sins.
Oh, I see. Yes. Yeah. What are they? There's sloth, gluttony,
Greed.
Greed, yes. That's
Anger.
Right. And there have been some movies and books written about that uses those themes. Serial killer, I remember. There was a serial killer book about that.
The 7. He killed somebody related to all 7.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't quite do it that way, but it's surprising the things that you can find that fit into different. I actually found one story in the Bible for gluttony where a king actually truly got stabbed, and he was so obese that the hero couldn't get his sword back.
Oh,
You never know.
All right. So, and you're also in this conference. One of the organizers, one of the leaders, one of the photographers. I know. I see you photographing around.
I came originally in 2004, just as someone who wanted to find out what this was all about.
Right.
And it's how I got connected with both the Sisters in Crime New England chapter and the Mystery Writers of America, New England chapter. I made a lot of friends among mystery writers, and then gradually I volunteered, and then you do that, and then next thing you know, they put you on the committee.
Is there a murder in every one of your stories?
You know, I was thinking about that, and I don't know that if there's a murder in any of my stories. I have the short stories that I've written are mostly humorous caper crimes. And three of them feature a couple who are young, charming sociopaths who met in court-ordered therapy. And she is Macy's public enemy number one. And he's a disillusioned son of a police officer who, among other things, likes to steal police cars.
Oh, wow.
And I have fun with them. She's the narrator, and she's very.
Does he drive away with the siren on?
In the first book, or first story, he does actually escape in a police cruiser.
Oh, I see. Oh, well,
Not giving anything away.
okay. Maureen Walsh, it's really good to talk to you, and best of luck on all your short stories and other prizes. Okay.
Well, great.
New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. Thank you. Okay, our next guest is Jenny Pivor, my good friend Jenny. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
And you're having a good conference?
I am, it's great.
And you've got a great book out here. It's about dog. This is for dog lovers, right?
It
And
is,
I
definitely.
imagine you are a dog lover, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Boston.
It's Boston Dogs, right.
And what are difference about Boston dogs than about other dogs?
So this book is featuring all of the great places that Boston Dogs have to go. And I have a dog, he's a 72-pound Labradoodle. And he goes in the Charles, and he goes in the Frog Pond, illegally, of course.
Yes, yeah.
And
Okay, we won't tell
we
anyone.
won't tell anyone. And he goes in the duck pond with the ducks, and he swims, and and he swims in the fountains, and he runs on the Boston Common, and we recently moved to Charlestown, and there's a great dog park there, and he's making all kinds of new friends, and that's on the cover here.
I see. So this is a really interesting because it's a picture book of all the dogs, and you did this, right?
Okay, so the process is, and it was really fun, as I go around, I shoot all these pictures of dogs and their owners, or dog walkers, or whatever, and
You shoot up
with
just a regular
my
photo.
phone,
Yeah.
with my phone.
And then
I run it through an app,
right.
and then I touch it up and put it, in design, and make a book.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now,
Yeah.
this is very different. You're a publisher, right?
I am.
And
yeah.
and you published up like 70 books or something?
Yeah, it is. I've kind of slowed down because actually my husband passed away, and I just, I've kind of tabled that for a little bit, and so I'm doing some of my own projects right now.
Oh, yeah. And so you don't have to edit this in words. It's mostly pictures.
Yeah.
It's mostly, yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of words. I mean, there's
And what motivated you? Just the love of dogs? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm out with my dog all the time, and I always see these fun dogs and doing fun things, and I take pictures, and yeah.
Yeah, well, in our apartment building, we live in a large apartment building, it's dog friendly, so there's no shortage of different kinds of dogs there, from small to large.
So you might want to tell them, I'll send you an email about this. So on December 6th, I don't know when this is going to be aired actually, but on December 6th, there's a launch for this at Polka Dog Bakery in the South End, and it's part of the South End Christmas Stroll. And I'll be taking pictures of dogs there, and they can enter a contest for the next book. And dogs should come in costume. There's going to be prizes, holiday costumes, and there's treats for dogs. So.
But you've written other books as well.
I have.
Yeah, about what?
Okay, well, the last one that was published is called The Closing, and it's a story about physician-assisted suicide, but it's.
Oh, really?
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the point of it, but it's really about relationships, and it's about, elder love and friendships, and
Are you for physician-assisted suicide?
absolutely, absolutely. I think yes, yes.
There was a ballot in Massachusetts about that a few years ago, and it lost a lot.
I know, I know, I know.
So I don't know that you have the majority opinion on that.
Well, I've never been one to
Yeah.
go with that, anyways. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
And are you going to still continue writing? And what's your next project?
So I'm just finishing up a thriller. It's called Jolt, and it's about a young entrepreneur in Kendall Square, and her startup where she discovers a biological weapon, which is going to be released in Boston, and she has to use her wits in her program to stop it.
I see. I see. Well, your books are at least New England based, and that's really
Absolutely.
great. Yeah.
Yes. Well, you can't help it. I mean, when you're around here.
Okay, Jenny Pivor, thank you very much for being with us. A good friend of mine. I've known you for years and years.
Years and years. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
All right. Well, thanks, Kameel.
New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. Thank you.
Okay.
So you hold it.
Okay.
Our next guest is Shelly Dickson Carr. Shelly, welcome.
Hi, glad to be here.
So, is this your first novel here that you have?
This is my first novel, and it won 3 awards: Best New Novel, Best Mystery, Best Teenage something or other.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And you were a
Benjamin.
bestseller on Amazon?
On Amazon through Kindle for 10 days.
Oh, that must have been a real high.
It was a real high. I had to take pictures of the screen because I didn't know how to save it, but I was, number 1.
Well, congratulations. So, how long did it take to write it?
Well, it's about Jack the Ripper, and I had to do a lot of research in London and all about Jack the Ripper. So it took me about 5 years. I'm slow.
Wow, 5 years to write it. How much of that was research? you think?
A lot of research. I had to go to London quite often. I did a lot of research. I read every book on Jack the Ripper.
There
so
are many, right?
yeah,
There are many
yeah.
theories.
There are many theories, and you have to read the book. But this is a time travel where the Katie Lennox goes back in time, and with the help of a Cockney lad, it's YA, young adult, she solves the murder of who was Jack the Ripper.
Oh, and you do solve it.
Oh,
at
yes,
The, at the
it's solved.
beginning or at the end?
Oh, it's solved at the end. It's
It's
solved
solved at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And
And you went to London.
Yeah.
You stayed there.
Oh,
You
yeah.
studied it was prostitutes that were
Yes,
murdered,
yes,
right?
but-
Refresh our memory. How many people were killed?
So there were 5 women killed, young women. One of them was very young. And yes, they were prostitutes. However, our idea of a prostitute, and back then there was very few jobs for women, and some women one woman, her husband never came home, and she had children, and she had no way to support herself. Women couldn't support themselves back then. It's hard enough now, but back in the Victorian age, it was in 1888, some of these women had no choice. So a lot of times people just sort of flippantly say, oh, they were all prostitutes. Like, they had it when they had it coming. And that's just not the case.
But he terrorized the whole
He
neighborhood.
terrorized Victorian London. Queen Victoria told all her subjects, don't go out at night. No woman should go out at night, because Jack the Ripper was eviscerating women, and that's a very horrible way to die. You're cut from stem to stern, and all your innards are let go. However, what happened is the queen didn't realize that women had to go out and work. They had the shop girls had to be there at 4 a.m. The women who were dance hall girls, the women who were sewers, everybody, the women who were domestics had to go out, and you had to go out at night. So it was very, very difficult. And one night, Jack the Ripper killed 2 women, and one of the women said, I'm so afraid to go out, I'm so afraid to go out. I think Jack the Ripper's going to get me. And she had to. She had a job, she had children. So it was very, very, it's very sad.
Wow.
But this is exciting.
The whole
It's
story.
not sad.
Yeah. How many books do you think have come out about Jack the Ripper?
Dozens and dozens and dozens.
Yeah.
And because it's always fascinating. He's never been. And the other thing is, this sobriquet is that he was Jack the Ripper, but he could have been Jacqueline the Ripper. There's a
Oh,
lot
I
of different-
see. I see.
But that was his name. It was the nickname. So everyone has always thought gee, it was a man, but it might not have been. It could have
Oh,
been.
oh, yeah. So they just was it the police that came up with this Jack?
Well, no, actually, it was a journalist who
A
said Jack the Ripper. And also, people in Victorian England didn't think women had it in them to be mass murderers.
I
And very
see.
few women
Oh,
are
so you're giving
serial
us an
killers.
idea that maybe there was a woman, huh?
Well,
it says in the book. It's
it
a
could have
very
been-
substantial
It could have
book.
been cross-dresser Jack. And if you were a woman, the Queen of England had told everyone, if you're walking alone at night, ask another woman to walk with you. Don't walk with a man. Don't, ask another woman. So a woman would hail another woman. So what if Jack was a cross-dresser and dressed like a woman? You'd say, oh, are you walking my way? I'll walk your way. And they were all caught unawares, and everybody was scared to death of this man. So you would
Very scary cover here.
yeah, well, that's what they always thought he looked like, because he would have had a lot of blood on him. So he obviously had a cape, so he could. I should talk to you. I'm talking. to you.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
all
help it.
right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
they think he had a cape because he would have been covered in blood. And top hat men wore top hats back then. So this is what they think Jack wore, but I actually think he was dressed as a woman. I really do. And there were some women's buttons found at one of the sites.
Interesting. Never heard of this theory before. And well, so congratulations on this, Shelly Dickson Carr.
But he
no.
could have been a police officer, because you'd also hail a police officer. Could have been a minister or someone dressed like a minister, because you would also hail a minister.
Anyway, it would have been someone who was friendly.
Correct. And you
Right.
trusted. So
Yeah.
who would you trust? If you were on the streets and some mass killer was out there, a serial killer, who would you trust?
I would trust a woman because
Okay, there you go.
men commit crimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Precisely.
All right.
So hey.
All right. Well, congratulations
Well,
again
thank you. This
on
was so
the
much
success
fun.
of
now,
yours.
if you change your headpiece, we can get you to look like Jack. Right? Be careful.
All right. New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next guest is Albert Tucher. Albert, welcome.
Thank you.
You have a book out. You're a police procedural. Tell us about it.
Well, it's called The Place of Refuge. It's from Down and Out Books, and it's set in the rainforest of the Big Island of Hawaii.
Did you used to live there?
I've never lived there, but I did. I've been there about a dozen times.
And tell us, so it's a police procedure. How did you know about police? Were you part of police?
I'm not I have no connection with law enforcement. My brother is a Coast Guard lawyer. He has done some criminal law. And Mystery Writers of America has brought me into contact with quite a few police officers who have shared their time and their expertise.
And what's the story? Tell us a little bit.
I have to think back. I've been working on a sequel. Basically, it's two cases. One detective has a serial killer of prostitutes to catch, and the other has an undercover assignment that nearly kills her. She's trying to bring down a marijuana operation, and their cases essentially collide in the rainforest.
I see. Oh, that's a very interesting story. And when you say police procedural, can you explain that genre to people?
It's basically, it follows police through a case, and you try to get it right as much as you can because, that's the genre.
Do you have a policeman who is the detective who
Yes.
is in charge? And is this going to be continued on in the next the same character?
Yes, I have several more in the works. His name is Errol Coutinho, and he works with the Hawaii County Police.
I see. And why did you go there? Why didn't you set it in the Northeast?
Well, the rainforest is fascinating. It's sparsely populated, but much of the population is marijuana traffickers, meth cookers, fugitives.
Is that right? I didn't. I never thought about that. The island.
And I don't know of anyone who has used it in fiction. So it was a natural for me.
Oh, that's great. So, was that your first? Or
This
first
is
novel? Or?
I have another novel that was ebook only. It's called The Same Mistake Twice. That is a very dark, hard-boiled story about a prostitute named Diana Andrews.
I see. So your genre is pretty hard. Pretty
hard and dark, yes.
Yeah. And does it end badly? Or should I not say?
Not for her, no.
Okay. All right. Well, this is New England Authors with Kameel Nasr. Thank you, Albert Tucher, and we look forward to looking at your book.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.